Hey, this is Deb, and you're listening to Dave Cruz on Beyond the Strange Radio.
Cherie Ariano of Divine Light Quantum Healing offers energetic healing services and healing tools. Her healing techniques use a high-frequency and high-dimensional healing modality called the crystalline healing light. This technique is an innovative and advanced vibrational healing modality that harmonizes all aspects of the human being. These oils, elixirs work on emotional healing, chakra balancing, and physical ailments through aromatherapy and crystal healing. Cherie sent us some of her bracelets. Deb has the I Am Loved bracelet. She has noticed that she loves the aroma of the oils. It gives her a sense of calmness and being loved. As for me, I have the I Am Protected bracelet and essential oil elixir, which are both made with the black obsidian gemstones. These bracelets have made a difference in our lives. Check out her store today at CherieAriano.com. That's CherieArellano.com. Use the promo code Beyonders and save 10% off your order. Divine Light Quantum Healing. It's like healing in a bottle.
Have you ever looked skyward and pondered UFOs, aliens, time travel, alternate universes, and parallel dimensions? Want to explore paranormal activities, hauntings, and various cryptoids such as Bigfoot, sea and lake monsters? Greetings, Beyonders. I'm Author Casper Parks, and you're listening to Beyond the Strange with host Dave Cruz. Help spread the word by posting links to forums and social media. Available at YouTube, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio.
Everyone, broadcasting live from the Napa Valley wine country just outside the mystical Snow Mountains. This is Beyond the Strange TV, and we are coming to you live from Twitch and from YouTube Live. Thank you all for joining us tonight. It is July 15th, 2021, the year of our Lord, and we got a great show for you tonight. Tonight we're going to be speaking with chaos magic theorist Anthony Tyler, and we got so much to get into, so we're going to just jump right into it. But really quick, first, I'd like to give you a huge thank you to everybody who prayed and just sent good vibes and great thoughts of healing and everything to my wife, Deb. And I just want to report that she's on the mend. She's doing great. Everything's looking good. And I miss you guys. I really, really miss you guys. And I know that, you guys are really thinking about her and us and everybody. So I appreciate everything. So thank you guys once more. And, I really appreciate it. And I love you guys. I really do. So thanks everybody and for everything you guys do. I just appreciate it. I really do. Okay, so with that, I want to say thank you again for joining us tonight. And we have a great show tonight. Joining us, we have Anthony Tyler. And, of course, we have our good buddy Russ Bailey of Black Sky Paranormal. And then he is going to be saying hello to everybody.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Great to see everybody back again. Glad Deb is doing well. In the Twitch chat, we've got Jess Rogie. I just saw her pop up. Jose, Dragon Rose. We also have James Salcedo. And if you haven't checked out James Salcedo's new podcast, it's really good. Check it out Friday nights on Discord. Over in the YouTube chat, we have, of course, Dragon Rose again, and we have Syzygy. Thank you for joining us, guys. Great to be back, guys. Been on a little bit of a hiatus, making a special appearance this week, and glad everybody's doing well. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Also, Linda, hello. I really appreciate you just supporting the show, talking to me through MeWe, and it's just really awesome that you guys are just so supportive, and we thank each and every one of you. So thanks again. One quick announcement that I need to let everybody know. As of tonight, this is going to be my last show. Russ Bailey is going to take over the reins, and so there you go, everybody. Welcome Russ as the captain of the ship, and of course I'll be around to help him out, during the transition. That's what's happening. I'll be involved still somehow in the background, of course, but anyways, this is going to be Russ's show. So, that's something that I want to let you guys know. I just got I'm not even going to be excuses. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. But I'll be around, so it's all good. And Russ has been so amazing over the past couple of years, supporting this show, helping out, being the co-host and, the second voice of Beyond the Strange. Now he is the voice of Beyond the Strange, especially in Beyonders Crew on Facebook, man. I can't thank you enough. I mean, we've got double, the amount of people in there because of Russ, and it's just he's just an amazing go-getter. So I really appreciate him. So thanks again, Russ, and congratulations on earning the show, man. That's I'm happy to be passing it down to you.
Yeah. Thanks, but you got to help me co-host sometime.
Yeah, I will.
You got to make it appear. Of course, we got the Cap here too.
Yes, we have. We have.
He'll be here to help out some. Yeah, he's always here. So.
When he's not biting you.
But, yeah, right.
All right.
Lots of good stuff coming up in the fall.
Absolutely, we got some good stuff. I'm just really thrilled about this. Okay, so without further ado, Anthony Tyler, you are a chaos magic theorist. That's one of the titles that I've come up with for you, my friend. Can you give us a little bit of background for you? And again, thank you for being on the show tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I wasn't aware that this was a bit of a sentimental moment, so I appreciate y'all having me on. And
absolutely,
I'm pleased to bear witness to the passing of the torch here.
Right.
It seems in good hands, and I do hope as well that you do some co-hosting, Dave.
Oh yeah, I'll be around.
Excellent. Okay, but so yeah, let's dive into some stuff here. Chaos magic theorist is not a bad description at all. It's a good starting point. There are some some points to start with, some distinguishing points, I guess you could say. There are, chaos theory has a lot of this tradition and like this 90s flux of like cyberpunk extremism, and it's got a little bit of that kind of that pretentious magical vibe that you find in some esoteric circles, but for anyone who's familiar with any of the literature with chaos magic, people like Peter Carroll, the one of like the founders of it, I would say I have much greater inspirations, being like Carl Jung and Manly P. Hall, the 33rd degree Freemason, but chaos magic as a like tradition, so to speak, is a little bit secondary for me, although something that definitely I have read and take into account. But ultimately, I can't really escape the idea or the label, nor do I really want to, for that matter, of like chaos magic, because the idea of chaos theory in investigating the unexplainable is like the more you look into the data, the more crucial you find it is. And it's something that we'll get into more, I'm sure. It is a huge crossroads between not only like the subjective and the objective, but things like the unexplainable at large, from mysticism to poltergeists and paranormal, etc. So
Right.
chaos theory, to put a cherry on top of that real quick, just being like, so the supposition is that the universe is inherently chaotic insofar as we have yet to understand it. So it's pretty common sense, but when you follow it through to its extents, it becomes very complex and mathematic. And I'm not a physicist or a mathematician, but the important implications are that we can find underlying patterns in things. And there's the old adage, that the flap of a butterfly's wing can cause a typhoon halfway around the world. And
Mm-hmm.
the big takeaways in that being that like look at it from the perspective of a human being. Even though we know theoretically that is definitely possible with the right preconditions, from our human perspective there would be no way to draw that correlation from the typhoon back to the butterfly. How would you draw it down? So I mean, from the standpoint of the human, it's essentially magic or unexplainable, but we can see that there is some sort of, I don't know, deeper interrelationship, and that gets into terms like heuristic and trial and error imaginal processes, that ways that our imagination helps us encapsulate observations that we've made about the world around us that we don't scientifically empirically understand yet.
So let me ask you something. I've noticed this in circles, of course, on our circles that we talk about supernatural and paranormal fringe topics. I've noticed that sometimes magic is spelled with a K, and most of the time it's spelled with a C. So what is the difference?
It might depend on who you ask a little bit, but generally speaking, it's safe to say that you could draw out the extents further, but the easy way to distinguish it is magic with the K is more of the esoteric practice of what I would call and what the alchemists would call like the transmutation, the sacred marriage of opposites in the psyche. So it's more of like that sacred inner science, and then magic without the K being more so like Vegas magic or something, at least in terms of our modern understandings of it.
Right. So
little
the
bit
David
of
Blaine
Doug
stuff.
Henning. Yeah,
Yeah.
Doug Henning, David Copperfield.
Oh my gosh, that is so old school. That's funny
Old
because
school,
man, I remember growing up and watching those TV shows with the magicians, and it would be Doug Henning and David Copperfield, and it's like these guys were just blowing my mind, every weekend, whenever I saw that show. And it's like, I just thought, man, that's so great. And
it's fascinating. It's
it
great
is.
stuff. I used to like to learn how to just some small magic tricks when I was younger. It's a fun thing to do. Just like, I don't know, just to surprise yourself in a way. But just talking about magic, I gotta say, like, the growing up, something that really got me interested, because it came out, I was pretty young, early 2000s, The Prestige.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you guys
that's
have seen that.
Great movie.
Great movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I love how
Excellent
I
movie.
even like the way they worked Tesla in there. That was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Really awesome film.
It
It
was.
really is. And chaos theory is, I mean, while we're on the subject, and we have like a whole cornucopia of different avenues we could go down. Like the thing where it all starts with me is the existentialist point of view and belief, talking about magic and things, pulling the wool over somebody's eyes, and how in many ways our brains, like the human existence is designed to do that to itself, where we not only do people project, in the Jungian sense, where we we tend to magnify parts of ourselves that are otherwise not so magnified, in order to, we project the aspects of our inner psyche onto the world around us in order to extrapolate and externalize and relate to the world around us and things. And but there's also things like compartmentalization, and things like the proverbial genie in the bottle. And there's all sorts of superstitious or magical beliefs where we take parts of our psyche and put them away for safekeeping, or we just try to banish them or get rid of them altogether. And it's really interesting to see what happens when you try and externalize beliefs like that, in radical ways that essentially boil down to like priming techniques involved with hypnosis and trance states of consciousness. And what we're doing in those trance states of consciousness, at the very least, is getting to like the lab bench of the brain. We're getting up to the beakers and test tubes and things. And in the same way that like dreams, with dream analysis, it's this flood of the unconscious. And yes, it's this materialist perspective of some sort of accumulation of sensory data from your recent activities and things, but it's obviously much more than that. And whether it be things like compartmentalization or projection or otherwise, all these things are what it boils down to when it's happening naturally. It's ways for your unconscious mind to, and this could be a good or bad thing. It could go both ways, but it's essentially like an alarm system. And it's not where the trail of breadcrumbs ends, but that's where it begins. It's some sort of externalization, a way to highlight things that are otherwise inaccessible in your mundane or daily life, because the daily life by and large doesn't always like adequately suit the needs we have on an existential level.
Now, when you talk about projection, and we do have a question in the YouTube chat that Russ is going to get to in a second. I have heard, and I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but he had investigated the case of the movie The Entity. And that movie, not only for its time, was pretty, scary. It was pretty, horrifying, the things that this woman went through. The investigator believed that the basis of that movie was based on a true story, and that it was possibly not really spirits or demons or any ghost or anything like that, but it may have actually been her own consciousness that was projecting all of these manifestations. And so, I guess in a way, what I'm getting to for tonight's topic, or whatever you want to call it, manifestations to me is like, it's been on my mind for quite a while. And so I kind of want to get into that more, but it was really interesting to hear that, all of the things that was happening to her, it might have just been her doing these things with her mind, and she didn't even know it. She was projecting all this stuff. So I just thought that was really interesting. We'll get back to more of that stuff here in a second. Russ, you want to go ahead and ask the question real quick?
Sure. So our good friend Heidi Leah in the YouTube chat, All Things Exist, she wants to know, when did you start practicing, Anthony?
That's a good question. I was going to ask that.
Let's see. Well, it kind of depends on how you want to break it down, because I've always been interested in these things, and I've always been a little spiritually inclined. I was raised Protestant Christian, and I got into Buddhism for a while, and at this point, I just kind of consider myself like, I guess, I like a lot of Buddhism and Taoism, Hermeticism. I'm strongly influenced by, but in terms of like legitimate practice and esotericism and like magic, quote unquote, it's been about 5 years now. But I mean, again, it depends on how you want to break it down, because I was dibble dabbling with psychedelics in ways that proved to really just essentially be a precursor to like essentially seeing the therapies of psychedelic use done responsibly and with the right intentions, etc. How that was kind of, and also the history behind it. There is a little bit of I don't know, you could say propaganda, for lack of a better term, around the psychedelic, and sometimes it's over popularized. But when it's done in the right way and sparingly, I think you can overdo it pretty easy. But it for me, and I know for a lot of other people, that was kind of an opening point where it's like so there's psychedelics, and there's dreams, and there's artwork and experience, having catharsis and experience through art, whether viewing it or creating it. And so at a certain point, it just becomes, well, this is the next step. This is the engaging with these archetypal aspects of human consciousness is something that you're already doing. And so in all these variety of ways that I just listed, so why not take the reins and try to, because that's what mysticism is all about. That's ultimately the difference between, the definitions of religion and mysticism. Religion is based around the structure and not only the building, whether it would be the temple or church, but also the priest class. But mysticism is cut out the building and the priest class and start talking directly to your ideals. And so that's really what I'm all about. Like, even more so than magic, although I don't really shy away from that term. But if I had to be pigeonholed into something, I would say I'm really into mysticism, because I really think that it's just an innate, natural part of the human experience to have some sort of working relationship with, I don't know, that which touches your life, but you still might not be able to fully grasp or understand.
All right.
Yeah.
Where does Gnosticism come in?
I mean, well, so being raised Christian, one of the I don't know, one of the first points is, I still have a great respect for Christianity. A lot of my family's Christian, and I don't consider myself opposed to it at all. The only like hard lines I draw, when I talk to like Christian family members or something, is I do think that there's more than one path, and I think that I don't think Jesus is the only way. I think he is a great way that works for a lot of people. But I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard it before. But where Gnosticism comes in is the idea, just for me, it's, I mean, because, okay, I'll say it like this, because someone once put it to me, and this is advice that stuck with me all this time, is that it's really important to understand, if you want to get into philosophy and metaphysics, a variety of different groups and schools of thought, so etc. But also, before you do that, it's important to understand the schools of thought, religious structure that you were culturally born into, just because that is going to, whether you wanted it to or not, be setting some sort of template for you developmentally. So it's kind of learning part of the language of your own unconscious mind. And so while I've already listed some of my other influences, I couldn't, nor would I really fully want to get away from my Christian roots. I have a lot of appreciation for it. I just think that a lot of it is misguided. It runs rampant today.
I like that answer, because I was actually making it more of a general question, not so much as it applied to you, but by you answering it that way, that's how I look at things too. Is I've definitely not shied away, but kind of grown more into my spirituality and learning more on being spiritual than religious. You know, even though I do practice going to church, you know, prayer, things that are ritualistic in that sense, right?
Yeah.
But I still feel that there is more of a spiritual aspect to life than just religion. So if that's being Gnostic, I think that's kind of where I fit in a sense, not so much as being religious or not, you know, not religious. So I appreciate that, the way you answer that. And we do have another question, I believe, right,
Yeah.
Russ?
Yes, sir. Dragon Rose from the Twitch chat says, Anthony, what do you think about Kabbalah considered Jewish mysticism?
I got plenty I could say about that.
Well, we got some time.
Yeah.
I think it trying to understand the Kabbalah and the trees of life and death, for me, really just kind of cemented my interest further in chaos theory, because you know, as above, so below. This is what the whole tree of life motif is playing off of. But it's important to remember. I'm not sure if the questioner is aware, but I'll bring it up for anyone who isn't. You know, where the tree of life essentially comes from, it was inspired by this whole kind of fractal, as above, so below motif, where if, you know, so the mystics of old supposed that the human psyche was essentially akin to a cosmos, and to their extent that seemed to be true. I mean, it doesn't seem to not be true even today. And but so therefore their supposition from there, and this is chaos theory essentially, it was that if the human psyche was a little cosmos, then the cosmos must be a big human psyche. And that's where the whole, you know, idea of the God as we know it comes from. And, you know, the tree, all the different Sephiroth on the tree of life, the 10 spheres that compile it, is also said to be the anatomy of God. And, you know, it really just seems to me, I think an easy way to break it down is, you know, it's like a yin and yang on a really, really wild, like Hunter S. Thompson psychedelic trip, because it really is the same principles, the trees of life and death and the yin and yang. And, you know, that's one reason why Gnosticism is fascinating to me, because it, you know, some Gnostics take it to the extent that like Yahweh is the demiurge and Yahweh is this almost like flip it on its head, where Yahweh becomes the antagonist. But, and I think that is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But excuse me, I think you know, like drawing from the yin and yang, and this is something that is a motif throughout archetypal symbolism and, you know, mysticism the world over. But you have, you know, you have the little white and the black and the little black and the white for a reason. It's if you want to draw those comparisons to something like, say, the more Abrahamic dualism, like God is a little imperfect and you should have a little bit of sympathy for the devil. And we could break that down in different ways, because that's not meant to be taken in extents of it's not meant to be taken into extensive moral relativism. It's these are deeper points that there's inertia behind symbols, most certainly, but it also is in the eye of the beholder a little bit. Like I have plenty of friends that are Satanists, you know, the secular humanists, as many of them call them, because it's not even about worshiping the devil. It's about calling out the hypocrisy of the church. Now, I don't find a need to associate with LaVey Satanism, but I do see where it's coming from, you know. And so, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you have priests abusing children. So it's not so clear cut as basic symbols as it is what you do with them. And the trees of life and death and the yin and yang. It all really boils down to physics of the psyche. What Jung was talking about. The reason he got so interested, he veered off from Freud's tutelage and got into on this alchemical trip, was because the biggest tip that Freud gave Jung was the idea of psychodynamics. He got the term psychodynamic, which is not used too much today, but it was a really crucial initial framework to psychology as we know it. Well, psychodynamic comes from thermodynamic. They were really playing on the allegories of light and dark in the psyche. And what is thermodynamics playing with? Light and dark and the accumulation and dispersion of energy and things. So it's a very literal allegorical framework here. So it really has to do with your accumulations and dispersions of energy and what you're using, what kind of proverbial genie are you letting in through the bottles of your belief systems and your symbols? I mean, it's not so clear cut as one thing or the other. I don't know.
And we can even go into talking about the jinn, and man, that's a whole nother can of worms, right? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, no, that's good stuff. Anything else going on, Russ, in the chat rooms that
well, we've got Heidi. She has another kind of question. She said, are there any rituals that you do regularly, Anthony?
I try to mix things up sometimes. So there are certain things I do. I'll do my prayer and some meditation and stuff. But mostly in terms of big impactful things, my philosophy with ceremony and ritual, and I have like well, I'll go into that next. That's like the second part of it. But I in terms of sitting down and like cleansing a space and then getting into hypnotic priming to get into these altered states of consciousness, which basically amount to something very in between like an artificial dream and a psychedelic trip, eyes closed. I'm not hallucinating or anything. And it's so point being, I usually do that with the same kind of philosophy that I do with like a psychedelic trip. So I know some people who will take a psychedelic like a mushrooms or something every 6 weeks or something. They want to, or 2 months or whatever. They want to cleanse the palate in a way. And that's cool. And people do that with the ceremony and ritual as well. I just kind of think like it's something that provides that extra push in a way, and kind of helps you dig deep when you need to. But sometimes it's you don't always have time. That could be very time consuming, very literally, to sit down and cleanse the space and get into that trance state of consciousness. And that's why people have developed other methods as well, like things like divination, etc. And I've so part of Dive Manual, my book, it goes into things like tarot and numerology and things. I don't use like a tarot deck all the time. I have before. I've owned one for a period of years, but in the long run, this kind of brings it back to chaos magic in general. The idea that we are externalizing these archetypal, deeply ingrained aspects of our psyche that have also been influenced through like physics of the earth around us and things. We're externalizing these components, and you could do that in such a variety of ways. And one of my favorite examples of that is, it was put to me once that with chaos magic, so theoretically speaking, if you had the right preconditions and the right focus and dedication, and you mapped everything out, and you also were familiar enough with hypnosis, etc., you could develop a magical system, magic in the sense of what we've been talking about so far, through a magic 8-ball. You could do it, and you could get some interesting results. And you can it that really speaks to the finer points of life and things like synchronicities and things and mysticism at large, and how
Mhm.
in the right state of mind, life is kind of ritual and ceremony. um and that's kind of like the mystical outlook as opposed to the magical one. But like I said, I dabble with both. But overall, I just think it's important to whatever side of the coin you choose, in terms of how you connect with those things, what tools you use. It's important to have that transpersonal space where you can, you know, boil it down, like deposit your hopes and ideals and work through your fears and pitfalls. And it's important to have that kind of the like breaking the fourth wall perspective on your own life, if that makes any sense.
Oh, that definitely makes sense. I dig Deadpool. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Oh
but
yeah.
mentioning your book, Dive Manual, and I definitely would love for the audience to get a copy of this. I again, I told you I have I've had a chance to read some of it. I wasn't able to read all of it, but I feel like it's well, I mean, you talk about dive manual. I mean, for by the way, what does dive mean? What is that all about? Dive.
Well, in alchemical um symbolism, I mean just esoteric symbolism at large, the uh the sacred feminine usually personified with the water, and the sacred masculine usually personified with land. And so we have this whole shore allegory, which also plays into, trees of life and death and yin and yang. And ultimately, more than even um like gender or sexuality or anything, we're looking more at the poles of the human physical existence, similar to poles of the earth. And um or like the proton and electron, for that matter. But where we get into, more mythological symbolism, um the whole dive into the depths of the unconscious, like, to put it into more practical, like everyday terms, um you could very much say that the our conscious perception of the world around us is that kind of cognitive yang aspect, and all of that deep imaginal reservoir of all that floating around in the back of our head, some
Mhm.
of which we're aware of and some of which we aren't. um, that's all the yin, and that's all that deep, because water can be a very beautiful and fun thing, but the deeper you get, the crazier it gets as well. And you have
True.
to, and that's not a bad thing either. That's just something you have to be prepared for. The more adventurous it gets, let's say, more so, more apt than crazy. Because um it's um when you start, the whole adventurous quality and getting into unconscious mechanisms of the psyche, um, you inevitably start to encounter the shadow. Because there are four components of the human psyche as we know it, from the Jungian standpoint, which is essentially extrapolated from traditional alchemy and esotericism, and that is the the mother, the father, or anima and animus, and the persona or the logos, and then the shadow. And the shadow is where you can start talking about demonology, but it's not just that; it's also all of that which, you simply just do not understand about
The
yourself or the
unknown.
world around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because from the more positive mystical perspective, Virgil, Dante's non-divine, excuse me, but non-demonic guide, through hell and purgatory. So there are levels of the psyche, that you can find even in Christianity, a religion that's often so polarizing. Um, you can find this need to, and that's what I mean by sympathy for the devil. You know, it's not, it's this Virgilian quality that you can even find in Christianity itself. It's that not so much that, again, that there should be a sense of moral relativism involved, but maybe you should you should be more wary. You know, it's like Christ said, take the plank out of your own eye, because sometimes that's where demonology comes in first and foremost.
Right.
When you are so emboldened with your own self-righteousness that, and you feel so full of fervor from your own God that you don't realize you've become the demon yourself. So I don't know what to take it from there.
No, that's all right. No, that's good. And again, you know, when it comes to these types of topics and talks, I do feel like a fish out of water, because I'm not familiar with a lot of this material, or, you know, these theories or whatever you want to call it. But I do, you know, pick up a little, you know, bit of things here and there, you know, like I do know that you were talking about, you know, Dante's Inferno, of course, but I had never read it, or I've never, you know, I'm only familiar with it, you know, and I know that there's a story about it, but I'm not exactly, you know, sure what's all going on in that. So, you know, that's where I'm at, you know. I mean, I guess what I do is I just kind of, I don't philosophize very much, I guess. I mean, that's great, but I do like to get down to nuts and bolts of things, I guess, you know. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like what we were talking about earlier, you know, about like me and Russ, we like to do, you know, either investigations, whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's ghost, that kind of thing. And, you know, see what's really out there, on a physical plane, or, you know, spiritually, you know, but also on a physical plane. So that's kind of where I try to take things. But I mean, yeah, it's great to get into this, you know, definitely get into this material. I'm serious. You're like laughing at me like, dude, there's so much. And yes, I know there is. There really is. But
no, I don't appreciate your patience. Laugh at you. No. I just, if anything, I laugh because I don't mean to ramble. I want to answer your questions as well.
I love hearing it though. It's so, yeah, it's cool, right, Russ?
It's really fascinating. I think it's very fascinating. You just hear all different aspects of, you know, mysticism and everything. I'm not very familiar with it myself, but it is something, you know, good to know if, you know, you are involved in investigations with paranormal, be it spirits, demonology, even UFOs and Bigfoot. It's all connected.
Exactly. Yeah, well, I'll bring this up because this, I feel like, is, I mean, even in my own, you know, personal journey, this was kind of like a major kind of segue for me mentally, and then, you know, this really opens the field to the paranormal and the other unexplainable from there. So I'll go into it just quickly because, you know, I've said it elsewhere before, but it's a really important point to be made. V.S. Ramachandran, famous neuroscientist that wrote, he's done plenty of work, but he wrote the book Phantoms in the Brain. He goes into all sorts of abnormal psychology, dealing with, you know, perception, and really calls into question through just basic neurological ailments, you know, what is real and what isn't. One of them being simply phantom limb syndrome. And I'm sure most of the listeners are familiar with the whole paranormal idea of associated with mirrors and reflection and things, and how that can often open up gateways. Well, this is
funny you should say that.
Yeah. And I would be very much interested in hearing the bells that this rings for you, because in this story, now, and Ramachandran went through with a lot of subjects and did control methods, and found that in the vast majority of cases, he created something similar to a shoebox with mirrors in it, a mirror box to reflect the limb of the arm of the person that had the phantom limb. The intact limb was put into it was reflected onto the spot where the limb was missing, right? So, and when he did that, he found that when the person wiggled their reflection, they found this intense stiffness and unpleasantness from the phantom limb animate itself, and the relief, and they found a tremendous amount of relief and catharsis. And they also found in many cases that the more often they did this, like going to a gym, there was one particular anecdote where a man was able to shrink the sense of his phantom limb all the way down through this process to just fingers coming out of his shoulder. And he could feel the sensation of it slowly shrinking over time, but then he couldn't get rid of the fingers because the angle of the box didn't line up. And so, and I think that this is, again, this isn't where the trail of breadcrumbs ends, but this is where it begins. Now, if we can do stuff like that with basic phantom limb syndrome, and this even gets us into things like the Jungian projection, etc., and it really makes me wonder what other proverbial psychic phantom limbs we have. And it starts to get into the unconscious complexes of the psyche. And I think that with a lot of this paranormal phenomena, the framework as I see it at this point is, I don't think this stuff purely exists in the human brain. Even when it's physicalized, I don't think it's just simply some weird, intense process just from the human brain that we don't understand. But I really think that this whole like kaleidoscope of the human psyche plays an instrumental role, like a fertile bed for a seed, or again, the proverbial bottle for a genie. And there's this projection process. And I think that in the rare cases where we do have genuine Fortean unexplainable phenomena, I think that we have essentially caught genies in the bottle in the ways that we physicalize our imagination. And because this gets into things like the relationship, in all these different states of consciousness, whatever school of thought you're in, things have the opportunity to become physicalized. We have alien abductions where people come back with implants, and we have priests, ending up with stigmata. And there's not just talk of religious wounds in Christianity. There's religious wounds the world over. And I think that at the very least, they are stimulating similar parts of the human experience. Most certainly, I think that there's this transphysical quality where things, it's not so much it's not at all that these things don't exist. It's that what exists to begin with what gauges are we even measuring reality anyway? It's a very serious question, because again, when you look into things like abnormal psychology and neurological ailments and traumatic brain injuries and things, we see that reality is a very flimsy thing to begin with. And that's not to say that nothing exists, but our relationship to it, the context to it, is everything. If you don't have the context, if you don't have the mirror to reflect, then you don't have anything to begin with.
And again, it leads me to thinking about manifestation and what we manifest.
Absolutely.
With our psyche, with our consciousness, what have you, whatever you want to call it. And that's what I'm about right now. Russ, I think you said you had a question, Keith, in YouTube.
Well, actually, more of a comment. When you touched on the mirrors being portals and everything, the paranormal investigation we did a couple of nights ago, it heavily involved mirrors. And we have Donna Hall is our psychic medium. She's a witch also, and she could sense them coming in and out of the mirrors, and it was just a constant flow and gateway. So what we did in the investigation, we had some poltergeist activity there also. We had Carl, Shane, and myself had stepped outside to just clear our minds, and we had just finished up a Phasma box session. And we didn't have the cameras rolling or anything like that. But we came back inside, and the cabinets were open. The cabinets had opened by themselves. So that was very interesting. Wasn't anything malicious there, but we did advise the client to get rid of the mirrors. And next thing you know, she's throwing them out in the trash today. It was definitely, souls and spirits, everything was coming and going as they pleased. I think that's what was causing a lot of the issues.
Yeah, I believe it.
Mhm.
And things like poltergeist and things, the skeptic will obviously roll their eyes. And I mean, rare as a story may be that's good enough to make into, or sensational rather enough to make into a movie, it doesn't always have to be that sensational to begin with to be interesting, and also to cause detriment in the lives of the experiencer, because that's the biggest thing that the skeptic denies, is they say, like, well, this doesn't fit in the framework of the empirical data as I understand it, so all of this is pointless and irrelevant. And it's so patronizing and disingenuous to the actual experiencer. I mean, sure, there are some people out there that are that are either mentally ill or trying to gain attention, but by and large, most people, you don't really have, unless you lean into something really hard like cult leader status, you don't really have a whole lot to gain from this stuff. So it's foolish to if you're going to say that these things don't exist because the empirical data lines up, then what you next need to do is look the genuine experiencer, metaphorically, like right in that eye, and tell them that. And I think that if some of these empirical skeptics were willing to do that, they would realize that it's not so clear cut, and that there's probably more that because a lot of times data will fail us in terms of trying to understand all of the nuts and bolts of these phenomena. But what we can certainly do is we can observe it and we can document it. And again, there's the difference between the smaller cases and the more sensational ones. But when you look at the record, even the recent historical record, like the 20th century onward, you can see that there is so much documentation of strange, unexplainable phenomena, like poltergeists especially. And I'd be willing to bet, I guess you'd need some polls and statistics to really back it up, but I think the only reason we don't hear about more sensational poltergeists is because news focus is elsewhere. Because you look back in the day, you find the Herman family that became inspiration for poltergeist, and then you have other things that were big headlines, like something that's not often talked about, but you guys might be familiar with the Ernie Rivers poltergeist, which is the first documented poltergeist in any known public housing project in Newark, New Jersey. Yeah, and then there was some other ones that became national headlines, like the Church Street poltergeist, where are you guys familiar with that one?
Which one was that again?
I've heard of it.
The Church Street poltergeist.
It sounds familiar. Yeah.
St. Catharines, Canada. Well, this is a really interesting one. This happened in the 70s, and again, just a litany of documentation on this, including police reports where it was thoroughly investigated by the local police, and then it was accidentally leaked out, and like people like Johnny Carson ended up talking about it, etc. And it was a 28-day event where it was a really intense poltergeist that just ended abruptly. But before it ended, there was like 6 police officers involved, and you can actually find interviews with them online. These guys aren't hokey. They didn't even have interest in the paranormal. Most of them were like former military that became police officers, but they were there witnessing this poltergeist event. And you can even find the police report online, like the legitimate police report, where the sergeant on the case says, I have no other way to describe the events other than the fact that this boy was the subject of a poltergeist. Everyone, all my officers saw this boy hurled, and other people hurled across the room for no reason, levitating off the ground. There was even one instance where multiple police officers watched a couch levitate several feet off the ground, holding locals including a police officer on the couch being levitated, and he swore on it and everything in police reports. So now the skeptic has a lot of naysaying to do, because it only takes one case to blow the lid on it all. All of them could be BS, but if this one is legit, then it changes everything.
Of course.
And then you look into all of the different data on all these different cases, even if most of them are a crock, when things like Ernie Rivers or the Church Street poltergeist, etc., really hard to discredit them.
And it reminds me of I don't know if you want to call them bigger cases or more well-known cases. Of course you have the Ed and Lorraine Warren, their work. They have movies based on their work, especially this last one. This is interesting, Russ. I mean, since you've told me about the show on TV, Evil. I don't know if you've heard of it, Anthony, or not, but there's a show on TV. It's called Evil, based on this priest and I guess she's a profiler.
Skeptic.
Yeah. They work together, going on these cases of like demons and possessions and hauntings and stuff like that.
It's up my alley.
It's pretty cool.
But
it's a great show. I'm getting into it really heavy. The last movie about the whole Conjuring series seems like it was based on a true story about a young man who murdered someone and was being tried on it, but they were using the defense that he was possessed. And, the Ed and Lorraine couple came in to work on this case to help prove that this person was possessed, not in his right mind, not in his right body, whatever you want to call it, and did the murders. It was a demon or whatever you want to call it that did it. And I'm finding all of this fascinating. And not only that, these kind of things have been throughout time, of course, and in Hollywood and whatever. But to me, it just seems like it's all. It's more consistent, or not consistent. I'm sorry, more. I'm trying to think of the word. Current. It's more current. Like we're hearing more and more of this stuff now. Of course, now that we have the internet, of course, but we've had the internet for a long time. It just seems like, and mainstream, a lot of this stuff, especially UFOs or UAPs, excuse me. But, it just seems like a lot of this stuff is coming out in a time where I would say we're looking at apocalyptic times. I mean, this could be end times. I don't know how you feel about that, Anthony, but, I come from a church background, a religious background, where Revelations is just right around the corner. Or we're actually in it, and a lot of these things are going to happen during these tribulation times.
I mean, while we're on the subject, real quick, my kind of view on that is because I think that is on the money. And I wonder how, because that apocalypse is also, I mean, it's obviously that's also an old term for revelation. So there's the whole sentiment of death being how allegorical might it be, because I think that Revelation is kind of a blueprint for the fall of civilization or parts of civilization in general. I think it can very well describe the fall of the Roman Empire, as some people have described, and I do think that we, in terms of that, like archetypal blueprint, I think we are living in it right now, pretty much. I'll tell you what.
It would seem that way.
Yeah, it sure would seem that way. Where, I don't know where you guys want to take it from there. There's plenty more that we can talk about. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of hoping for a phone call, to be honest. And since this is going to be technically my last show, I would love to hear somebody call in and just say what up before I sign off. So,
Yeah.
you know, the phone
Call in,
number,
folks.
yeah, the phone number is 415-891-9083. Again, that number is 415-891-9083. If you want to just say hi, or, you know, what's on your mind, talk to Anthony, whatever you want, you know, just call in, you know.
Oh, and
Phone lines are open.
I'm glad you said that and gave me a quick breather there, because I remember there was plenty to talk about possession there.
Sure.
That's something that I've definitely been researching more, and something that is going to be one of the handful of focuses in the next manuscript that I'm working on right now. And, you know, demonology at large is fascinating. And yeah, belief in possession is on the rise in the US. And has been for a while. And, you know, the same argument that we just, or like outlook that we laid out in terms of plenty of opportunists out there, but a lot of genuine experiencers. You know, possession is the same thing. And I'm wary of, I appreciate people's belief systems wholeheartedly. What I am wary of is organizations a lot of the time, especially when you look at control matrices like the Vatican. But that being said, you know, it's the same argument for any institution, right? Like, not all cops are bastards, not all priests are pedophiles. And so in terms of for the uses of this conversation here, I think that on a case by case basis, um, you know, I think that the tradition that has been upheld and developed continuously by the Vatican exorcists, I think that is very interesting and useful. If for nothing more than like a scholastic point of view, you know, because this is you, in order to understand the like extensive demonology today fully, I think you really have to untangle, like, you know, just the tangled slinky of the difference between like archetypes, mental illness, and like legitimate unexplainable phenomena. Because you could firstly say that demons archetypally represent like neurosis and this maladaptation, or like de-evolving process. And I think that, going back to what we talked about earlier, archetypally that's kind of the bottle for the genie, but that's just symbolic. That's in the human brain. That's the mythological aspects of the human brain. That doesn't really strike into the metaphysics, but that's really where it begins. And this is the heuristic continuum of our belief systems. You know, it's the whole God of the gaps. I'm sure you guys have heard that term before, where God and metaphysics as we know it kind of rests in this continuous vacuum that science creates, where there's that event horizon of human understanding, and we'll never be able to get past that point.
Right.
And therefore metaphysics, there will always be a place for God and metaphysics in these things. And so the same can be said about this continuum of demonology, where long time ago they put what we would consider like crazy unexplainable possession scenarios in with things like smallpox and sleep paralysis and leprosy and epilepsy.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely heard that. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to cut you off or anything, but we do have a caller.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
586. You're on the phone. You're live on Beyond the Strange.
Hi, this is James.
Hey, James. How's it going,
What's up,
bud?
James?
Greetings.
Not much. You asked for a call, and I figured I'd help out.
Well, I'm appreciative of that. How you doing, man?
I'm okay. I'm just loving the show as always, and I'm loving the conversation. And I don't know nearly enough, I don't think, to really have any questions right now, but just wanted to say hi.
Well, I appreciate that, James. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is James Salcido of Salcido Paranormal. And he's got a great podcast on Friday nights on Discord. You definitely want to check that out. You know, and it does relate to all things paranormal, including spirits and ghosts. And of course, we love hearing about spirits and ghosts. So, but yeah, you're on with Anthony Tyler right now, and Anthony's got a lot to talk about that as well. And of course, you've been hearing that conversation. But yeah, man, it's really great to hear your voice. And I mean, I'm around. Of course, I'll be in the Discord chat. So, I appreciate you calling in, though.
Yeah.
Thanks
I did think of one question.
Yeah.
Just regarding and this is going back to kind of the beginning of the stream, regarding there being different paths as far as religion or spirituality. I was wondering what you all think really about whether there was ever an origin for all those paths, or if they just started off all in different places and where they're going in general.
That's a good question. You want to take that one, Anthony?
Sure. Yeah. From my point of view, I think people, again, they like to, because it's part of, I don't know, how humans interpret things in many ways. They like to externalize things. But, I think, like, gun to my head, if I had to summarize it real quick, best guess, I really think that where it all begins is existentially, right? Like, in the sense that the true mysticism, the true religious transpersonal experience is just through that getting that to that state, through life itself. Like I really, when answering questions like that, I do like to actually genuinely consider what it would be like, like, what was the first spiritual thought? I had to start somewhere. And then some psychologists and anthropologists have theorized, there's the whole idea of the bicameral mind. The idea that as our brain matter developed more and more over the time scale, that our unconscious mind came across to us as a different voice, essentially. And what kind of role and impact would that play on the human adaptational scale as we know it? And this communication with different aspects of our psyche, and therefore also different aspects of, again, the world as we know it. Because, a perfect example, the yin and yang, mother and father, these things, mother and father, or male and female, are pretty low on the totem pole, in terms of comparisons. Like, it's really stemming from axiomatically physics of the psyche, the polarities of existence. And I think, just simply, short story long, the human being slowly coming to terms with that, and finding, the how to interact and engage with that. I think that is such a fundamental, quintessential part of the human experience. And so I don't think there ever really was a beginning. I think there's just beginnings of schools of thought, to be honest with you.
Interesting. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's almost even more interesting than there just being one origin point or whatever. So, but thank you very much. I will get off the line and have a great night.
Thanks for calling in, James.
Thank you.
And much luck to you and your podcast. It's great. So you're doing awesome, man. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
All right, buddy. Have a good night.
Good night. Yeah.
All right, James Salcedo, everybody. Salcedo Paranormal. You can catch him on Salcedo Paranormal Discord channel on Friday evenings. I believe it's 6 p.m. Pacific. So, he's on Twitter. He's in Discord. I'm sure you'll be able to find his show, and we'll definitely promote it as well and support him. Well, we got a few more minutes, Anthony. I went over a little bit longer just because we started late, but again, I'd love for you to let the audience know where they can find you and your dive manual and everything else that's you.
Yeah. You can check out my website, divemind.net. or you can say hello to me on Twitter or Facebook. Twitter is all lowercase, DiveMind667, or Anthony Tyler on Facebook. I got Dive Manual listed in there, and I'm in California, so I'm easy to find on Facebook there. And yeah, you could find a Dive Manual on the website, or you can go directly to Amazon. The full title is Dive Manual: Empirical Investigations of Mysticism, and it's this conversation was a pretty good I don't know, like show of it, in terms of it's really seated in mysticism and esotericism, but it branches out into Fortean, UFO. I throw Mothman in there a little bit.
Very much,
yeah. So, keep your eyes peeled. I got a new book, Hunt Manual, that I'm working on. That should be coming out around the new year, and that's going to be real heavy on the it's going to be couched in the Fortean and unexplainable with the backdrop of esotericism. So it'll be a little bit of a flip, and it's going to be lots of poltergeists and paranormal and things, and true crime as well. Man, we didn't even get into possession and obsession and serial killers and everything. There's always more to talk about. So go check out the website. You can find some excerpts of the book too, like sleep paralysis and demonology in the 21st century, etc.
Well,
hope everybody enjoyed it.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool.
Thank you again, Anthony. Really appreciate it. I'm sure Russ will have you back in the near future, now that he's the captain of the ship. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in tonight. And thank you, Dragon Rose, for loving the show. Everyone in Twitch, everyone in YouTube, don't worry, there'll be more shows. I'll be the engineer, so I'll be sitting in the background until whatever. But I really appreciate it. And Russ, you want to let everyone know where they can find you?
Yeah, Facebook, Black Sky Paranormal. You can find me on Twitter, Black Sky Paranormal Research. Instagram, Black Sky UFO. TikTok, Black Sky UFO.
Nice.
Also, Beyonders Crew on Facebook, and BeyondTheStrange.com, of course.
Absolutely. BeyondTheStrange.com is still there. Again, thanks, everyone. You guys have a great night. We'll see you again soon. And stay strange. Hasta, everybody.
Peace.